Joining us now, CNN political commentator Scott Jennings. He was a special assistant to President George W. Bush. Also with us is David Litt, a former speechwriter for President Obama and the author of Democracy in One Book or Less. So, David, I want to start with you because one of the things that I think has become a little bit accepted in our political history is that Barack Obama is an incredible campaigner for himself. He has won his elections that he has run for himself very big. Hasn't always been as successful campaigning for others, whether it be in midterm elections or for Hillary Clinton last time. So where do you think and how do you think the former president will be most effective? And did you hear that at all in this interview last night?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this morning. And let me say, we're in a pretty remarkable situation where the most trusted figure in American politics is Michelle Obama, and then the second most trusted figure in American politics is Michelle Obama's husband, Barack Obama. And so both of them have a really unique authority to speak to the American people, not just Democrats at this point, but also independents and Republicans, about what this job takes, about what the kind of character of someone who should be having this job ought to be, and then also about who Joe Biden is. All of that makes them, I think, particularly good surrogates this year, in the next couple of weeks in particular. And one of the things I noticed, you mentioned that President Obama was on a podcast, my former speechwriting colleagues, Pod Save America, and he's talking directly to some of the most engaged, active, most likely volunteers in the Democratic Party. So he's able to reach Democrats directly, and it's not just about sending a message, it's also about moving up engagement, getting that extra volunteer shift, getting people to call up their friend in a swing state and get them to vote early. So you're seeing all of these avenues that President Obama can use, combined with that unique credibility and trust, combined with a year that, if the polls are right, is starting to break Democrats' way pretty heavily. I think you add all those things together, and you can see why both of the Obamas make such a good pair of closers.
Scott, I know as a Republican, you're not in the business of giving Joe Biden advice or political strategy, but do you think that there is a way for the Biden campaign to deploy President Obama in a way to a demographic that Joe Biden isn't hitting?
Well, first of all, I'll give anybody advice. I mean, and it's worth what you paid for it. So just keep that in mind. Number two, yeah, of course. I mean, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, the Obamas, popular people, very articulate in laying out the stakes of an election. You know, I mean, they're far more articulate in some ways than Joe Biden is in laying out what they want to see for the future of the country. So anytime you have powerful, well-known, popular surrogates, you know, it's better than a sharp stick in the eye. And so I think Biden needs those kinds of people. I'm not sure how much of an impact he'll have. I mean, Barack Obama's been a feature of every federal election since 2004. He's done well for himself, as John pointed out. He's not done very well for others. I would say if I were the Democratic president that had created the conditions in this country that led to Donald Trump becoming the president, I'd probably be campaigning 24 hours a day, too. Heck, I'd probably be in therapy. And so I'm not surprised to see them out on the campaign trail. And I think turnout and enthusiasm in both parties' bases is pretty jacked already. So I think it's a great thing to have to drive news cycles. Will it cause a single person to turn out that wasn't already going to turn out? I'm not so sure about that.
Speaking of jacked, let's talk about money. Scott was excited there for a second.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
It's about money. Not about either of us. Look at the fundraising haul that was announced by the Biden campaign last night. $383 million in September, and then it's the number on the right that really matters, which is $432 million cash on hand at the beginning of October. David, that is an enormous sum of money. One that actually it'll be challenging to figure out how to spend it all effectively. What does that tell you when you have a challenger? And we don't know President Trump's fundraising number yet, but based on the last month, it may be a safe assumption it's not as high as the Biden team. What does that tell you?
Well, John, if you remember, the Trump campaign was supposed to be the Death Star. They called it the Death Star, and apparently the Rebel Alliance has arrived, and they brought reinforcements. I mean, what we're seeing is an enormous amount of support, and one of the most important numbers within that number is the percentage of those donations that come from small dollar donors who can give again before the end of this election cycle, and also from people who represent not just a couple of big names writing a couple checks, but represent enthusiasm for the candidate. So I think what you are seeing is an incredible eagerness. You're seeing the same thing with early voting, where Democrats are, they've been waiting for 4 very long years to do something to turn the page on President Trump. And they're jumping at the chance. And I think that, coupled, by the way, with the fact that Joe Biden, lots of people, including on this network, will say, well, he's not a great campaigner. Look at those fundraising numbers. He's running a very impressive campaign.
Scott, feel free to comment on fundraising. And also just wanted to touch on that Republican governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker, has announced through a statement that he will not be voting for President Trump. No surprise, but just wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, the fundraising story is far more important than Governor Baker, who's obviously not a fan of Donald Trump. I'm old enough to remember, by the way, when Democrats were the party that said money in politics was evil. Now, I mean, look, at the presidential level, at the Senate level, congressional campaigns, Democrats have all the money. They have unlimited money. You look at what's happening for Biden and for Jamie Harrison in South Carolina, for Mark Kelly in Arizona, all these Senate races and congressional races, unlimited amount of money. You'll never be able to spend it all. And so all the voices that told us that money is evil in politics have suddenly gone very quiet. Now, I celebrate money in politics, and I think it's perfectly fine for people to spend money in politics. And I think if there's a message in all this, it's to Republican and conservative donors, and that is, when you get mad about something and you're upset about policy, don't run to Facebook and post some ornery message. Pull out your wallet and give money, because that's what the Democrats have figured out how to do, and God bless them. They have absolutely figured out the small dollar fundraising game in a way the Republicans haven't, and I suspect it's going to make a big difference in all the federal elections this fall.
All right, Scott Jennings, David Litt, thank you both so much for being with us. Appreciate it.